friends, we are getting ready to start a new lesson or series of books over the next couple of days, and actually over 4 days. And this book is going to deal with realistic fiction. Okay, we read a lot of realistic fiction. You guys read a lot of realistic fiction, and so we're just going to focus in on it, make a working definition, as in you guys come up with a definition for realistic fiction. And you're also going to notice characteristics about books that are realistic fiction. What makes it realistic fiction? Why does it have that label, that genre label? My plan is that at the end of these 4 books, we have a Zoom meeting or a Google Hangouts meeting or something of the sort. And together, we come up with a definition and we make a list of characteristics that all these books have in common that make it realistic fiction. Okay? So that is the goal for this next several stories we're reading. And I'll introduce the books that we will read. One is Big Moon Tortilla. Another is Amelia's Road. This one, No Dogs Allowed. And finally, Happy Likes Soccer. We're going to read them in different orders, not the order I introduced them to you. But the first book we are going to read today is going to be Big Moon Tortilla. This book was written by Joy Cowley. And a tortilla is a round, flat bread, often filled with yummy ingredients to make foods such as tacos, burritos, fajitas, and enchiladas. Look at the big moon and the tortilla on the illustration. Yeah, there's some similarities between them. As we read this, I want you to think about whether this girl and her problems seem real to you, and could this story really happen? I always chuckle about tortillas because my son, my second oldest son, has a blanket that looks like a tortilla because he loves quesadillas. All right, Big Moon Tortilla by Joy Cowley and illustrated by Dwayne Strongbow. By the time Marta Ineos had finished her homework, the sky was orange with sunset, and a fussing wind was blowing across the desert. A fussing wind must be a strong, annoying wind. Marta Ineos opened her window and looked outside. In the cookhouse, Grandmother was making tortillas for the church supper. She slapped them into large circles and tossed them onto the iron plate over the mesquite fire. Grandmother's Big Moon tortillas were the best in the world. And she called it a cookhouse. What would be another name or a synonym for cookhouse? Yeah, it'd be like a kitchen. Now the head of Marta Ineos was filled with the knowing of fresh tortillas. Oh, that sweet, crisp, little bit burnt smell. It went to Marta's stomach, which rumbled and growled, and then on down to her feet, making her toes twitch towards the cookhouse. The legs of Marta Ineos would not wait another minute. They were in such a hurry to run to the cookhouse that they knocked over Marta's table, and that is when the disaster happened. I'm thinking that before this she had been working, she just finished her homework, and that there was a fussy wind outside, which would be a strong wind, and her window was open. So I'm going to make a prediction or some inferencing to say, a prediction here, to say that something must go wrong with that homework, I'm wondering. I bet. Let's find out. Well, the homework papers, with their neat writing and beautiful drawings, went out the window and onto the breath of the fussing wind. Uh-oh. The wind huffed the papers high into the air. Then, with a little cough, it spread them over the village. The legs of Marta Ineos were sorry for their mistake, and they ran out to chase the homework papers, which slipped and slid like kites without string. Yeah, they're kind of going everywhere, right? But the dogs, too, were chasing, leaping into the air. They barked to each other, "A game! A game!" In no time at all, the beautiful homework papers were torn and chewed into trash. The second disaster happened when Marta tried to pull a page away from a puppy. Her glasses fell off. This isn't gonna be good. And she stepped on them. One arm of her glasses broke in half. She did not smell tortillas anymore. Her head was filled up to her eyes with grief and tears as hot as chili peppers. Ruined homework? Broken glasses? Marta Inos ran to grandmother. And why didn't she smell tortillas? Because she had bigger problems to be concerned about. Grandmother left her tortillas and sat down, as big as a bed and warm from the cooking. As she smoothed Marta's hair from her floured hands, she said, she smoothed Marta's hair with her floured hands. She said, "Hush, hush. If you cry so much, you'll put out the fire." "The dogs ate my homework and I can't see to do it anymore," Marta sobbed. Grandmother rocked her. "Little problems," she said. "Too small for a big rainstorm. We'll repair your eyeglasses." But the tears of Marta Inos still ran through her eyes and nose and made hiccups in her throat. Grandma said they were little problems. And too small for a big rainstorm. The big rainstorm must be referring to her big tears that she was crying. So grandmother sang to her an old healing song. And with the healing song, there was a story. When we have a problem, we must choose what we will be. Sometimes it is good to be a tree, to stand up tall in the desert and look all ways at once. At all ways, not always, all the ways around at one time. Sometimes it is best to be a rock, to sit very still, see nothing, and saying nothing. And sometimes when you have a problem, you have to be a strong mountain lion, fierce and ready to fight for what is right. I wonder what she should be right now. Sometimes the wisest thing is to be an eagle and fly. When the eagle is high up, it sees how small the earth is. It sees how small the problem is, and it laughs and laughs. Grandmother wound some tape around the arm of the glasses. She put the glasses back on the nose and ears of Marta Inos. "That should be okay until we can get them fixed," she said. "Now, one tortilla before supper?" Grandmother pinched a ball of dough and slapped it between her hands. Flip, flap, flip, flap, flip, flap. When it was as big and pale as a rising full moon, she dropped it onto the iron plate above the red-hot coals of the fire. Ah, the smell as the tortilla bubbled and browned. "I have decided," said Marta Inos, her legs doing a tortilla dance. "I am going to be an eagle." Grandmother nodded. "That is very wise," she said, turning the tortilla over. "Fly high and laugh, then come back and do your homework." And we'll end with the author's note. This is interesting. "I shall never forget the time I spent on a Tohono O'odham reservation in southern Arizona near the Mexican border. This story is set in one of the small villages there. Grandmother's words of advice come from an old Native American saying, which varies slightly among the different tribes of the southern states. Like Marta Inos, perhaps you will remember grandmother's advice the next time you have a problem. The end.